Welcome to A Moment of Bach, where we take our favorite moments from the composer's vast musical output, just a minute's worth or even a few seconds, and show you why we think they are remarkable. We are your hosts, Alex and Christian Giebert. Today's moment comes from cantata Darzu ist erschienen der Sohn Gottes, BWV 40. Listener Riley from Australia introduced us to this cantata, and so in a past episode we have covered the triumphant opening chorus. And now Riley writes, I'm here to give another one of my favorite moments from Bach, again from the same cantata, but this time it is for the aria Christenkinder. In this section, Bach tells the story of how Jesus will protect his children from the wrath of the devil. He embodies the joy and happiness felt as a child through the horns and oboes playing an uplifting melody. My moment comes from the opening. The feeling that Bach evokes is jumping with excitement from the children as they rejoice over Jesus. The long coloratura embellishments from the tenor on the word rejoice helps keep the melody flowing. The percussive nature of the pulsing notes again appear from the opening chorus, but this time, the horns not only add some percussive elements to the piece, but also act as a form of hopping or jumping up and down from a child at the excitement of Jesus. And also in the B section, where the text is about Jesus protecting his chicks from hell, there is also some juicy moments in there as well. So there's some good exposition for this wonderful aria that we have for today's episode. The opening immediately reminds us of the opening to the entire cantata. There's some nice continuity there. We have in the opening of the continuo, bum 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 bum, a figure that reminds us of the opening chorus. Horn figure. Yeah, very similar. Bum 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 bum. It's just a different time signature. It's not only just like a motivic thing, it's also just a very idiomatic horn-sounding thing. It's just nice that he gives it to a different instrument this time. And the entire first section of the aria is based on the word freut, which is rejoice. The orchestration here and the opening instrumental introduction to this aria is just so delightful, and it paints a portrait of Jesus, the caretaker of his flock or of his children. The meter of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 gives us that pastoral feel. The text evokes that role of Jesus as the caretaker. It reminds me of the passage of "Let the little children come to me," where some of the disciples are saying to the kids, get away from Jesus, he's busy with the adults. And then Jesus personally says, no, let the little children come to me so that I can teach them also. But here, the children are being protected from hell's rage and fury. And that is through Jesus' coming to earth as a child. So this is ultimately a Christmas theme. We have 2 horns and 2 oboes in dialogue. And sometimes one oboe or one horn alone will interject a tiny fragment, and that's a very nice moment when that happens. And then there's the horns just calling out on one repeated pitch.
Some of Bach's best stuff is whenever you get the word Freude, you know?
Yeah.
These joyful leaping figures. In the final chorale, we get that too, although it's not accompanied by leaping figures because it's a straighter just chorale setting. But we get this wonderful poetry, which is just so festive and holiday to me. It talks about giving peace to all Christians and a blessed year. And then it says, Freude, Freude, über Freude. And the translation, joy, joy, unending joy, or maybe more properly, joy, joy over joy, joy upon joy.
Upon,
basically.
Like that.
Yeah. And then, Christus wehret allem Leide. Christ shall ward off all our sorrow. And then, Wonne, Wonne über Wonne. Bliss, bliss upon bliss. Ist die Gnadensonne. He is the Son of Grace. S-U-N, of grace.
And what a great triumphant ending it is to that chorale. Doesn't go down, but goes up.
Christ being called the Son of Righteousness, S-U-N, of righteousness, comes from one of the minor prophets, Malachi, and that particular name is given to Christ in the famous text of Hark the Herald Angels Sing. Mm-hmm. So it's not kind of out of the blue, so to speak, to call Christ the Son, S-U-N.
You also don't see a lot of Bach cantatas in a key, then begin their final chorale in the parallel minor of that key. Here we have Darzu erschienen, mostly in F major throughout. The final chorale begins in F minor.
Yeah, that's a little unusual.
And it is in F minor, despite the key signature being a little bit misleading. It's just one of those old key signature things. It has 3 flats, and it looks like it's in C minor. It's in F minor, but it winds up that triumphantly ascending up to F major. So it brings it back at the end on that wonderful text, the Son of Grace. Whereas the beginning is more prayerful and contemplative. Jesus, continue to look after thy members with loving grace. By the time we get to the end, we are at joy and bliss. So it really transcends to the end. Returning to the prior aria, Christenkinder, the second section of this aria is wonderfully evocative. We now have the rest of the text. Though hell's domain now rages, though Satan's fury would frighten you. And Bach surely does a lot with these words. Notably, on the word erschrecken, there is a scary, chopped up way that phrase is sung. And then we hear the words, Jesus, who can save, will gather his chickens under his wing. The protective wing of Christ, with us being under it, is another thing that we get from the Old Testament as well. Psalms, I think, mostly, right? The eagle's wing.
Yeah, but also Malachi.
Oh, so this is all just a Malachi passage, basically, maybe?
Oh, no, it's actually not, because Malachi, it's healing in its rays. Son of Righteousness will rise with healing in its rays, which, the reason I confuse that is because in Hark the Herald Angels Sing, it does say healing in his wings. So it's a poetic connection between what you said, the Psalms about the on eagle's wings type psalm, and then this. It's interesting. Okay, so healing in his wings is actually just a different translation of that same text from Malachi. There you go. Could just be an idiomatic thing, right? The sun having rays. This could be a Hebrew thing, an idiomatic thing in Hebrew. Wings and rays being the same thing for the sun. Yeah.
Then we close out this aria by returning to the opening material. By the way, harmonically speaking, close to the cadences, there's a really great sort of dominant chord over the pedal point of the dominant of the dominant. The C is on the bottom, over which you hear the B natural.
That's cool.
And the D and the F. And the result is a really nice dissonance over a pedal point low note. It's not a long held out low note. The bass line is still active, but the bass line is hitting all these beats, these strong beats on C, which is our expected second to last area to be in. But then the third to last chord, which would be the dominant of the dominant, does happen, but without the bass changing. The bass stays on C, and it's a really nice crunch there.
Anytime you see a bunch of numbers in the figured bass, it means something fun is happening. And
it is there.
Those numbers are 7, 4, 2, which is exactly what you described, Christian. Like, that's what that indicator is for. Yeah, no, I think it's cool that he does that, and my eyebrows raised at it a little bit in a good way when I listened to this. Usually with pedal points, it's like a held note. That's why this one is interesting, because it's not. Mm-hmm. He didn't have to just go back to the C there. And when he does, he also goes down to the lower C, which gives it even a little more like, hey, this is important. Boom. And now, here's the introduction to the aria Christenkinder from the cantata Darzu ist erschienen, der Sohn Gottes, BWV 40.
Christenkinder,
If this introduction to a musical moment has inspired you to hear the rest of this cantata, please follow the link in the episode description. Also, if you're feeling like helping out the podcast, you can always give us a rate and review on iTunes or whichever podcast listening platform you use. And that helps us get found by other people who might enjoy the podcast.
Okay, Alex, what will we be looking at next week?
Next week we're going to look at Cantata 103, Ihr werdet weinen und heulen. That features a soprano recorder with a really interesting couple of measures that I want to focus on from the first movement.
Riley signed off on this episode request with what we say after each episode. Until next time, enjoy those moments.